Hey, what's up, guys? Dubs here. Just do me a favor, real quick. Just click the notification bell, subscribe for daily content, and more importantly, just share the video. We gotta just share as many videos as we can to fight back against the left censoring and propaganda. I say it all the time. Let's do it. Let's hammer them. So Joe Biden actually gave what I think is the most ridiculous and absurd speech of his entire candidacy in the middle of a damn field in Delaware. And one of my other videos, I said you can tell how when the politicians and the media both get like a memo or like an email or some kind of message telling them of what the message of the day is going to be. What is the narrative of the day that we're going to push? Okay, like you see it all the time. Every single Democrat, from local, state, federal, every single media pundit, every single person will say the exact same thing, exact same line, word for word, verbatim. I know everybody. I know we recognize it. It's what's funny too is because a lot of times the right will put together like montages of them all saying the exact same thing back to back to back to back to back to back back back, and it just sounds so ridiculous and it's so obvious. So anyway, the message of the day was science. Trump hates science. Okay? Trump hates science. He denies science. He denies the climate is changing. He any type of science, Trump ignores it and he dislikes it and he does not pay attention to it. Whereas Democrats, and especially Joe Biden, will follow the science to a T. You know, that the same science that told everybody not to wear masks when the coronavirus first started, but then it told them to wear masks. The same science that said that the virus, you can get the virus by touching, doorknobs and mail. But then they said, well, it really doesn't transmit on surfaces. If people followed the science the same way the left wanted to follow the science, doctors would still be doing exsanguinations, and they'd still be, doing leech therapy. They'd be putting leeches on people so that they can withdraw the toxins from them. So they have no concept. They use it as a talking point only. So I'm going to play some of this speech for you guys, and we're going to do a little commentary through it because I need you to see how ridiculous and absurd and stupid it is. And his mental decline is on full display for everybody too. Full display. This guy cannot. Obviously, he reads from a teleprompter. Everybody knows that. One of his idiot aides got slapped around by Brett Baer with that one. But he is squinting so hard, and he's struggling so hard to keep up with the teleprompter now that you can't even see his eyes. It's like he turns Asian, and he goes like this, and then you can't hear him behind his mask, and then he falls asleep at the podium. My God, how could anybody be thinking of this guy? How could anybody, honestly? Listen, obviously Trump's got his character flaws, obviously. But the guy's done a good job, and we're going to go over a lot of his policies and other segments to come. So please stay tuned, and let's get into this stupid speech.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Natural History Museum. As a nation, we faced one of the most difficult moments in our history, in my view. 4 historic crises all at the same time. The worst pandemic in 100 years that's already killed nearly 200,000 people and counting. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. has cost tens of millions of Americans.
Economic crisis because Democrat governors are still keeping their states locked down. Well after the curve has been flattened, well after it, you can see that the economy is trying to come back with 8% unemployment. The unemployment is down to 8%. FYI, Joe Biden, 8% unemployment was good unemployment when in 2012. Who was the president in 2012? Oh, that's right. It was Barack Obama and Joe Biden.
Jobs and counting. Emboldened white supremacy, unseen since the 60s, and a reckoning on race that's long overdue. And undeniable acceleration of the punishing reality of climate change on our planet and our people, on the lives and livelihoods, which I'd like to talk about now. Jill and I continued, as I suspect all of you do, is pray for everyone in California, Oregon, and Washington, and across the West as these devastating wildfires rage on, just as we hold them in our hearts, those who have faced the hurricanes, tropical storms off our coast of Florida, North Carolina, or like parts of New Orleans that in fact have just been issued an emergency evacuation order for Hurricane Sally. Floods and droughts across the Midwest, the fury of climate change everywhere, all this year and right now. We stand with our families who have lost everything, the firefighters, the first responders, risking everything to save others, and the millions of Americans caught between relocating during a pandemic or staying put as ashes and smoke pollute the air they breathe. Just think about that. People are not just worried about raging fires.
Yeah, let's think about that for 1 second. Because all the various different reports that we've seen of people relocating were from over legislating and tightening of restrictions by the government, not because of fires. Yeah, there's been wildfires that have displaced people, lots of people. But people are leaving during a pandemic because their governor won't let them drive to their second lake home, their second home, or the governor won't let them see their own family members during the pandemic. Governor Whitmer. They're leaving because Governor Cuomo still won't let them open up their business. Governor Murphy's arresting people for trying to open up theirs safely with a lot of precautions. That's why they're leaving.
They're worried about the air they breathe, about the damage to their lungs. Parents are already worried about COVID-19 for their children when they're indoors, and now they're worried about asthma attacks if their kids are outside. Over the past 2 years, the total damage from wildfires has reached nearly $50 billion in California alone. $50 billion. This year alone, nearly 5 million acres have burned across 10 states. More acreage than the entire state of Connecticut. And it's only September. California's wildfire season typically runs through October. Fires are blazing so brightly, smoke reaching so far, NASA satellites can see them 1 million miles away in space. The cost of this year's damage will again be astronomically high. But think of it from the view on the ground, in the smoldering ashes. Loved ones lost, along with the photos, the keepsakes, all the memories. Spouses and kids praying each night for their firefighter husband, father, wife, and mother. Will they come home? Entire communities destroyed. We have to act as a nation. It shouldn't be so bad. that millions of Americans live in the shadow of an orange sky and are left asking, is doomsday here? And I know this.
Can I just ask it? Listen, if any of you out there know what the hell he's talking about right now, please leave a comment, because I don't know what the hell he's talking about. An orange sky doomsday event, and obviously he's checking his posture throughout this entire speech. You know, you can see him checking his posture, making sure he's standing up straight, and he's probably thinking back to his teacher in the old schoolhouse, smacking him with a ruler or something for not sitting up straight. I don't know what the hell this guy's thinking of, but okay, here we go.
The feeling of dread and anxiety extends well beyond the fires. We've seen record hurricane season, costing billions of dollars as well. Last month, Hurricane Laura intensified at a near record rate just before its landfall along the Louisiana and Gulf Coast. It's a troubling marker, not for just the increased frequency of the hurricanes, but more powerful and destructive storms. They're causing record damage after record damage to people's homes, lives, and livelihoods.
Okay, so it's a confirmed fact that the reason that there is more damage from hurricanes is because humans are building more in the path of hurricanes. They are building more on shorelines. Okay, just like who? Former President Barack Obama. He's got a nice estate right on the water in Martha's Vineyard. Now, if the sea level was rising so rapidly, why the hell would he buy such an expensive chunk of land right there? Why would all the real estate all up and down the coastline be going up? This, again, is more nonsense. Not to say that climate change isn't happening and how much of it is man-made and not man-made, we don't really know. But this whole thing where people are afraid that the world is going to end in a few years, I'm sorry, but I'm not afraid it's going to end from climate change in a few years, and I'm not dumb enough to think that just the United States, by ending all its carbon output, and even immediately, could even make a little dent in that, because it can't. Let's continue.
Before it intensified and hit the Gulf Coast, Laura ravaged Puerto Rico, where 3 years ago Hurricane Maria, our fellow Americans there are still recovering from its damage and devastation. Think about that reality. Our fellow Americans are still putting things back together from the last big storm as they face the next one. We've also seen historic flooding in the Midwest, often compounding the damage delivered by last year's floods that cost billions of dollars in damage. Many of you traveled through the Midwest on that bus tour, and you saw it. This past spring in Midland, Michigan,
that's all the Midwest is to him, a travel-through state. That's all it is. I can guarantee you he knows dick about anybody's problems in the Midwest.
The flood so devastating, with deadly flash flooding, overrunning dams and roadways, that has displaced 10,000 residents. It was considered once in a 500-year weather event. But those once in many generation events are now happening every year. The past 10 years were the hottest decade ever recorded. The Arctic is literally melting. Parts are actually on fire. What we're seeing in America, in our communities, is connected to all of this. With every bout with nature's fury caused by our own inaction on climate change, more Americans see and feel the devastation, whether in a big city, small towns, on coastlines, or in farmlands. It's happening everywhere. And it's happening now, and it affects us all. Nearly 200 cities, not Republican or Democratic cities, 200 cities are experiencing the longest stretches of deadly heat waves in 50 years. It requires them to help their poor and elderly residents adapt to the extreme heat.
Yeah, let's talk about that for 1 second. A lot of the different places, had heat waves, California being one of them. California just had rolling blackouts. Why? Why is that? They had blackouts and other places didn't really have many blackouts. Because so much of their power grid has been replaced with this green energy, solar and wind. And guess what? When it's not windy or when the sun goes down, you have no energy. So you have to tell people to turn their thermostats up to 78 and turn the air conditioners off and go by a oscillating fan like the jackasses in California. Who's that, Garcetti or Newsom? Both of them? Yeah, just it's 120 out. Just turn the thermostat up to 78 and turn the fan on and, use a fan instead. Because we, had to get rid of our nuclear power because we're idiots, and we had to get rid of all the other kind of backup power, and we just have to use solar and wind power, and it's not sufficient enough. It's not good enough. The technology is not good enough. The premise is not good enough to power all the people, to power things for people. I mean, if you want to use it as a subsidizing power source, sure, fine. But now look, you had California is supposed to be one of the richest states in the country, and they got to turn the power off, literally turn the power off on people. That's, well, come on.
To simply stay alive, especially in the homes without air conditioning, which many don't have. Our family farmers in the Midwest are facing historic drought. Those follows record floods and hurricanes, sped by windstorms all this year. The speed of those windstorms has been incredible when you saw it on television or saw it in person, with greater frequency and intensity. The unrelenting impact of climate change affects every single solitary one of us. But too often, the brunt falls disproportionately on communities of color, exacerbating the need for environmental justice. Sorry, as a bug. Speaking of the environment. These are interlocking crises of our time.
That's Mother Nature right there telling them to shut the hell up.
Requires action, not denial. It requires leadership, not scapegoating. It requires the president to meet the threshold duty of the office, to care for everyone, to defend us from every attack, seen and unseen, always and without exception. Because here's the deal. Hurricanes don't swerve to avoid red states or blue states. Wildfires don't skip towns that voted a certain way. The impacts of climate change don't pick and choose. That's because it's not a partisan phenomenon. It's science. And our response should be this.
There it is. Ding, 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 ding. It's science. That's the key word of the day.
Grounded in science. Acting together, all of us. Well, like with our federal response to COVID-19, the lack of a national strategy on climate change overall leaves us with a patchwork of solutions. As a matter of fact, it's been made worse by the changes this administration has made.
Hang on. You mean like the Paris Climate Accord that was so popular in the Biden-Obama administration that we absolutely had to be a part of? The Paris Climate Agreement that forced the United States to make such drastic changes or pledged the United States would make such drastic changes in our carbon emissions, which we have been already. And it didn't force China or India, the two largest suppliers of carbon emissions, to do nothing. It didn't have to do anything. So people that don't understand this, when you don't naturally move away from carbon emissions through technological advances, if you just cut it off without innovating first, that crushes our economy. So having a robust economy that will help innovations and help new technologies for new greener fuels is necessary. We need that first in order to reduce carbon emissions. So we need our fuels right now. We need our fossil fuels now to help us grow economically, to help innovate so we can get rid of it. And allowing two other countries that are our main competitors, especially China, to not have to do anything while we tank our own economy is nonsense. So yeah, it was great that Trump had us not go into the stupid Paris Climate Agreement.
Speaking from Delaware, we're the lowest lying state in the nation relative to sea level. Where just last week, Delaware State Attorney General sued 31 big fossil fuel companies, alleging that they knowingly wreaked havoc and damage on climate, our climate. Damage that is plain for everyone to see but the president.
I was hoping that this bug right here would fly right into Joe Biden's mouth, but it didn't happen.
We know he has no interest in meeting this moment. We know he won't listen to the experts or treat this disaster with the urgency it demands, as any president should do during a national emergency. He's already said he wanted to withhold aid to California, to punish the people of California because they didn't vote for him. This is enough.
So the reason why he wants to withhold aid from California is because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. Okay? I mean, it's not rocket science.
Another crisis he won't take responsibility for. The West is literally on fire. And he blames the people whose homes and communities are burning. He says, quote, "You gotta clean your floors, you gotta clean your forest."
No kidding, you have to clean the forest. That's the whole point. You're supposed to do controlled burns. This has been going on for years. And over the past, that's a known fact. So and California has reduced their controlled burns because they don't want the smoke to go into the environment. But hey, idiots, it's going to go there either way. Because when you have too much dead wood and dead foliage and dead trees building up on the forest floor, it's going to catch fire and then it's going to burn out of control. Whereas if you did small controlled burns to get rid of the old dead wood so new trees can grow. I mean, this is common sense. We all learned this in high school, even earlier than that.
This is the same president who threw paper towels on the people of Puerto Rico instead of truly helping them recover and rebuild.
Yeah, the reason why people of Puerto Rico are still trying to recover, okay? Yeah, he did give them paper. So what? He gave them tons of supplies, including paper towels. Among other things, he gave them, let's see, warehouses full of bottled water that were never dispersed by their corrupt politicians. That's why Puerto Rico is in such disarray. Their infrastructure was decades old, decades behind even outdated infrastructure. Okay? Their politicians are all evil, corrupt to the max. There's no accountability for them. They're not a state. The federal government doesn't go in and investigate. They're just a territory. So they run roughshod over the funds and over the whole territory. And it's a damn shame. But that's why they're having such trouble. They don't have a robust economy that the United States has. They don't have the workers. They don't have any of that. That's why. More bullshit propaganda.
We know his disdain for our own military leaders and our veterans. Just last year, the Defense Department reported that climate change is a direct threat to more than 2/3 of the military's operationally critical installations. That's what the military warned you. And this could well be.
Yes, I'm sure all the guys on all the boots on the ground all across the world are saying, man, the fact that the temperature has risen 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 120 years really is an existential threat to our lives right now. It's not the Islamists from the Middle East or anywhere else. It's not China. It's climate change. Holy crap. Could these clowns be kicking this dead horse of Trump hates the military anymore? Now you got to bring climate change into that.
This
My
will
God.
Be a conservative estimate. Donald Trump's climate denial may not have caused these fires and record floods and record hurricanes, but if he gets a second term, these hellish events will continue to become more common, more devastating, and more deadly.
That was, listen, wait a minute. You guys got to hear that one more time.
Fires and record floods and record hurricanes. But if he gets a second term, these hellish events will continue to become more common, more devastating, and more deadly.
So, vote for Joe Biden, and he is going to be able to stop hurricanes, stop the wildfires, and stop climate change. There it is, folks. You have it right there. He doesn't say necessarily how he's going to do that, but he's going to do it. And if you vote for Trump, that means you are voting for more wildfires. Joe Biden's going to give you less. Holy smokes.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump warns that integration is threatening our suburbs. It's ridiculous. But you know what is actually threatening our suburbs? Wildfires are burning the suburbs in the west. Floods are wiping out suburban neighborhoods in the Midwest.
You know what just came to my mind right there? That scene from Talladega Nights when they're doing the blooper reel at the end and they're going, do you know what's threatening our cities? Packs of wild dogs roaming the intelligent wild dogs roaming the streets. Holy shit, man. Illegal immigration impacts this country, including the suburbs, on a plethora of different levels. Okay, President Trump was the first president in my lifetime and in generations to actually bring it up and make it a hot button issue and not only do something about it, but fight like hell to keep his campaign promise to do something about it. We're going to get into exactly how illegal immigration impacts everybody in another segment and go over what Trump has gotten done about it. But the rest of the Biden speech continues on like this. He gets bitten by a bunch of bugs a few more times, and he smacks himself and he stumbles over himself a lot. But we're just going to leave you with this last part right here.
Storms. If you give a climate arsonist 4 more years in the White House, why would anyone be surprised if we have more America ablaze? If you give a climate denier 4 more years in the White House, why would anyone be surprised when more of America is underwater? We need a president who respects science, who understands that the damage from climate change is already here. Unless we take urgent action, it will soon be more catastrophic. A president who recognizes, understands, and cares that Americans are dying. which makes President Trump's climate denialism, his disdain for science and facts, all the more unconscionable. Once again, he fails the most basic duty to a nation. He fails to protect us from the pandemic, from an economic freefall, from racial unrest, from the ravages of climate change. It's clear that we're not safe in Donald Trump's America. This is Donald Trump's America. He's in charge. What he doesn't get is that even in a crisis, there's nothing beyond the capacity of the American people when we stand up and act together. And while so many of you are hurting right now, I want you to know that.
So all of this was still taking place under whose administration? The Obama and Biden administration. What exactly did they do for the climate crisis? Like I said, this was an orchestrated narrative, as usual. Today, the narrative is going to be science denial. That's the narrative of the day, folks. This coming from the same people that just said that they're not going to take the COVID vaccine because somehow Donald Trump is forcing private companies to rush the trials. They're forcing the medical community to rush the trials and rush the vaccine out. Who's the anti-vaxxer now? This is coming from Kamala Harris. The President Obama and Biden did things like just choke the economy, and the outcomes did nothing for the environment, like their Clean Water Act, which just forced farmers to buy permits when they wanted to spray pesticides, not stop them or give a different alternative. It just forced them to pay the government money. That's what this is all about. It's just a big money grab. That's always what it's been about. It's a big crock. It's not to say that we can't do things for the environment. Hell yeah, we should. But going net zero emissions in 20 years, how the hell are we going to do that when we don't have the technology to do it? We need to get there naturally, not artificially. If we rush it, then we're just going to tank our own economy and tank the country. So if you guys want, you can watch the rest of this ridiculous speech. But this is, it continues on like this. And like I said, he gets bit a bunch of times by bugs, and it's kind of amusing watching him stumble over himself. But that's about it. Thanks for sticking around, guys. I'll see you in the next segment.